The year is 1096. Thousands of men march east under the banner of the cross, answering the Pope's call to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim rule. Among them, scattered through the dust and chaos, are warriors who once prayed to very different gods, men whose grandfathers raided monasteries and burned churches, men whose ancestors believed Valhalla awaited the brave in death. These are the Vikings, and now they fight for Christ. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? The very people who terrorized Christian Europe for centuries, who became synonymous with pagan fury and destruction, now marching alongside knights and nobles to defend the Christian faith. Yet this is exactly what happened. The transformation of the Norse people from feared raiders to crusading warriors is one of history's most remarkable and overlooked stories. It's a tale of cultural collision, political ambition, personal redemption, and the strange ways history bends and twists the identities we think are permanent. To understand how Vikings ended up fighting in the Crusades, we need to go back a century earlier, to a time when the North was changing. Christianity had been creeping into Scandinavia for generations, brought by missionaries, traders, and captives. Kings began to see the political advantages of adopting the new faith. It unified their realms, gave them legitimacy in the eyes of powerful European monarchs, and allowed them to participate in a broader Christian world that was rich with opportunities for trade, marriage alliances, and expansion. By the early 11th century, kingdoms like Norway, Denmark, and Sweden were officially Christian, though the old ways died slowly. Many Norse warriors still wore Thor's hammer alongside the cross, hedging their spiritual bets. But conversion wasn't just about politics. For many individual Norsemen, Christianity offered something profound. It promised eternal salvation, not just for warriors who died in battle, but for everyone who lived righteously. It spoke of a single, all-powerful God who demanded justice and mercy. For men who had spent their lives in violence, who had seen friends die and made enemies of entire nations, the idea of redemption was powerful. The idea that past sins could be washed away, that a man could die in grace rather than infamy, resonated deeply. The Crusades offered these warriors a chance to prove their faith, to fight for something larger than gold or glory, and to earn their place in paradise. When Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade, the message spread rapidly across Europe, including into the Norse lands. Scandinavian nobles and warriors heard the same promises as everyone else. Fight for God, liberate the Holy Land, and your sins will be forgiven. For some, this was a spiritual calling. For others, it was an adventure, a chance to see the world, to win wealth and honor in distant lands. For many, it was both. The line between faith and ambition has always been thin in the hearts of warriors. Among the most famous Norse crusaders was Sigurd Jorsalafari, King of Norway. His very name, Jorsalafari, means Jerusalem-Farer. In 1107, Sigurd led a fleet of 60 ships and thousands of men on a crusade that would take him through England, Spain, and the Mediterranean, all the way to the Holy Land. Along the way, he fought Muslims in Iberia, assisted Christian forces in various conflicts, and eventually reached Jerusalem in 1110. There, he was received with great honor, fought alongside the Kingdom of Jerusalem's forces, and bathed in the River Jordan, a deeply symbolic act of purification. Sigurd's crusade was as much about prestige as piety. By crusading, he elevated Norway's status in the Christian world, proving that even the far north could produce champions of the faith. But Sigurd wasn't alone. Many Scandinavians joined the Crusades as individuals or in small groups, serving as mercenaries, pilgrims, or loyal retainers to European lords. Some joined the legendary Varangian Guard, an elite unit of the Byzantine Empire composed primarily of Norse and Anglo-Saxon warriors. The Varangians fought in numerous campaigns in the eastern Mediterranean, including actions connected to the Crusader states. These men were the direct descendants of Vikings, carrying on a warrior tradition that stretched back centuries. But now they fought under the double-headed eagle of Byzantium and the symbol of Christ. What's fascinating is how these Norse warriors adapted. They brought with them a culture of personal honor, loyalty to their leaders, and an almost fatalistic courage in battle. These were men raised on sagas, stories of heroes who faced impossible odds and chose glory over survival. In many ways, their warrior ethos fit naturally into the crusading spirit. Both cultures celebrated the idea of the warrior pilgrim, the man who proved his worth through violence in service of a higher cause. The Viking who once fought for his chieftain's wealth now fought for his god's kingdom. But the intensity, the courage, the willingness to face death remained unchanged. Yet there's something melancholic in this transformation. The Vikings who rode east were no longer fully Norse in the old sense. They had traded Odin for Christ, the longship for the warhorse, the saga for the song. They were part of a new Christian Europe. But that meant they had also lost something. The old gods were silent. The old ways were fading. These warriors represented a bridge between two worlds, carrying echoes of their pagan past, even as they swore oaths to a Christian king and fought beneath the cross. In a way, their presence in the Crusades marked the end of the Viking Age, the final chapter of a culture that had once shaken the known world. History doesn't deal in clean breaks. Cultures don't change overnight. The Norse warriors who fought in the Crusades weren't just Vikings or Christians. They were both, and neither, caught in the currents of a world that was remaking itself. They remind us that identity is fluid, that the people we think we know can become someone entirely different within a generation. The Vikings, once the terror of Christendom, became its defenders. Men who once burned churches died trying to protect them. And perhaps that's the real lesson here. People are capable of extraordinary transformation. The past doesn't have to define the future. A warrior culture built on raiding and conquest found a new purpose, a new identity, a new god. Whether that transformation was genuine faith, political calculation, or simple survival, it was real. The Vikings in the Crusades fought, bled, and died for a cause their ancestors would have scorned. They proved that redemption, whether spiritual or historical, is always possible. So the next time you think of the Crusades, remember the Norse warriors marching through the desert heat, far from their cold fjords and misty forests, carrying the cross on their shields. Remember that history is stranger and richer than we imagine, full of unlikely heroes and impossible transformations. The Vikings became crusaders, the pagans became pilgrims, and in that unlikely journey lies one of the most human stories history has to offer. The story of change, of faith, of warriors seeking something greater than themselves, even if it meant leaving behind everything they once were.